soon as the interview is over, we'll stop the recording so we can do a questions and answer thing. Okay,
Right.
everybody?
Exactly. So, like I said, this very special evening, we're going to have Kay Reynolds here. We've got her, and she is an evidential medium, a teacher, and a best-selling author. Kay was a teacher for 29 years before she started on her journey into mediumship. And she's traveled around the world, and she studied at the Arthur Findlay College in England. And welcome, Kay. Thank you for being with us tonight.
Thank you for the
Her
invite.
book, yes, we're so happy you're here. Your book is titled The Evidential Medium, a practical guide to developing mediumship. And I really enjoyed this book, really did.
Thank you.
It's a great manual. It's not intimidating anybody. It's not a huge read, but there's so much information in here. It's something you're going to look back on and I think keep using. So, Kay, I'd like to ask, what started you? I mean, you were a teacher. What started, you were in Texas. How did you wind up going all the way to England?
Well, I grew up in the Air Force and lived all over the world that way to begin with. And so I was very much aware of the teaching program on military bases overseas. My own children were growing. My youngest was about to graduate and go into the armed forces himself. So I just applied. I remember in second grade telling my mom, when I grow up, this is what I want to do. I wanted to be a teacher like my teachers overseas. And so I applied and off I went.
Off you went. So you went as a teacher. How did you change and leave teaching children to going into mediumship?
Well, I've always been aware of spirit my whole entire life. So, I mean, from as early as the age of 5, we were living in Japan, and I saw, as clear as day, like I'm seeing you right now. I saw a Native American Indian in my bedroom, and he was crouching behind a desk, and I was had bunk beds with my sister, and she was up above and I was down below playing with my Barbies, as most little 5-year-olds will do. And looked up and there he was. And it was pretty incredible. I mean, I didn't know what it was. I didn't understand it, but I wasn't frightened. I kind of locked eyes with him and just felt this immense love from him. And so I knew I was safe. And so that's the beginning. And I always just knew that I had behind me all these people that no one could see. And I thought they were angels because I was raised in a very much Christian family. And so I just thought they were angels. I didn't quite understand, that was my understanding as a young kid, but it was always with me. And so then when I when I left, my kids were grown and I hopped on a jet plane and headed to Germany and fought there for 7 years. But I had a diagnosis. I almost died. Diagnosis.
Wow.
And couldn't find a doctor anywhere in Europe to help me. And they had to medevac me back to America to get surgery. But anyway, long story short, I found a doctor in London who was a leading expert in my disease and made a medical transfer. And I just happened to land right down the road from the Arthur Findlay College, which was amazing in itself. And then I miraculously got well.
Oh, wow. That's awesome that you did. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Amazing how that works.
Yeah. Did you did you think that you'd be studying mediumship, that this is what your path would eventually be? Or is it like, okay, I raise my kids, I do my thing, and then I have time for myself?
No, it was, Spirit had always been in my life, and I'd always had these experiences. But I really didn't, think anything about a medium. I never even heard the word medium until I was in my late 20s when I saw it on TV. I knew what a psychic was, though. That I knew, but I never heard the word medium. And I didn't see myself as a psychic for a long time. I just thought, no, that can't be me. And then most of you probably have heard of Doreen Virtue, who I saw on Oprah in my late 20s. Hang on, somebody needs in. And what she was talking about was mediumship. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's what I do. Am I that? And so that really jump started my curiosity of what is a medium and what's this all about. Oops, sorry, still letting people in. And so when I got to Germany, all of my experiences started just ramping up. And then when I had my diagnosis and when I was really, really ill, Spirit started really communicating with me, but not family members, but people that I didn't know were communicating with me. And that just kind of blew my mind. And so then when I was much better with my health, I got my health sorted a little bit, found a doctor in London. When I when I got that transfer, I knew I wasn't going because of my health. I just felt it. I was like, I have to go to England, but it's not for my health. I just knew. And then once I got there, I was more and more things started occurring. Phenomena things started occurring. And then all of a sudden, my dad started coming in and communicating with me. And like everybody else, I was like going, oh, I'm crazy.
Right.
Communicating with my dad. And I literally, my poor dad, I put him through the ringer to make him prove to me that I wasn't losing my mind and that I really was communicating with him. And I lived in the place in eastern part of England, northeast of London, and it's all flat land. They call it the Fens, but that's where the farmers are. And so I had like a 30-minute drive to work.
Mm-hmm.
And the traffic was tractors and cows. That's the traffic that I encountered. And I was driving down this road, and it's just nothing but open roads. And I was talking to my dad, and I said, all right, Dad, I want you to prove it to me, because I don't believe I'm really talking to you. And I looked up, and there was a car just started coming out of nowhere. And I looked at the license tag, and it had the letters LD. Well, that's my dad's name, LD.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, well, I said a few words. I won't say what I said, but I was like, oh my gosh, you got, and I'm like, that was really good, Dad, but I need more.
Oh, wow.
And out of nowhere, here comes another car. And the license tag had KK, which is what my dad called me. And I was like, shut the front door. You got my attention now. And so that was the beginning. And who would have thought this was all just, ridiculous nonsense in his life here, was the one that really just started pushing me towards doing, finding out more about this work.
Wow.
So he's been my cheerleader all this time.
We need one, that's for sure, right?
Yes,
Keep pushing us, because we don't push ourselves, like you said, we think, okay, I'm just a little bit, and it's hard to accept, or to, I don't know the good word for that, to say,
Or to-
okay, excuse me.
Yeah, or to just believe it, because
Yeah.
in my mind, the only people that were mediums were the people on TV, which at the time was James Van Prague and John Edward and Doreen Virtue. Those were the ones that I saw on TV all the time. And then because I was living in England, and then I learned about Tony S.O.U.L, who lived not far from me, and he was on TV. And there was another medium, Colin Fry, that was on TV a lot, and he and Tony worked together and had TV. Both had their own shows and then had shows together. So that was my beginning, watching them on TV.
Do you think it's
Yeah.
easier in England? And I mean, there's so much over in England for spirituality and mediumship and everything. I think more than, I mean, I think a lot of us do. We feel that, okay, there's certain people in our lives, we're not telling them about this part of us, because they'll look at us and take me away,
Yeah.
kind of thing, So do you think it's more accepted there, that you feel freer to study? And
I think it is a little more accepting over there than it is here, but you still have those that they shun it, don't want any part of it, and think we're all just a little bit on the kooky side. But I feel it is more open, and you have the spiritualist churches there, and there's quite, in my little town, there were two different spiritualist churches, so you at least have over there, and that's one of the advantages, you at least have spiritualist churches. So that almost every spiritualist church over there has a circle that people can go to and attend. If you think maybe you have this potential, you just go to the spiritualist church, and they're all running circles, for, I think I paid £3 a night to go to a circle there in the little churches. So, and that's always, nice and quite lovely. And if you live close to the Arthur Findlay College, your churches sometimes will have those tutors come, which makes it even nicer.
yeah,
So, yeah, but you do have that, and that's quite nice.
makes it easier.
Yeah, I wish we had that here.
Yeah,
Really do, because I feel the spiritual churches helped me so much, tremendously, because they welcome you in, especially the new mediums, and they call you fledglings, the new those that are learning, but they welcome you into the church, where you can go and stand on the platform and be a part of the service. I mean, I'm doing one in 2 weeks because of COVID. I get to do a spiritualist church in 2 weeks in Cambridge, United Kingdom. So I'm so excited. I'm like, oh gosh, can I still do it? But they do the address and whatnot, but they will coddle you and teach you and show you the way. The churches will, and it's such a nice support system to have.
That's why we now have Zoom, and we Zoom our circles, and and
Thank
it's
God for Zoom.
yes, I mean,
Really.
none of this would have happened. I met Judy, and we worked together, but I had no inclination or anything that I would do what she does, and then she says, oh, you can do this, and I'm like, no. So I took a class, and it started, and it's like, really? this is amazing. It really is. Yes, it is amazing, and totally unprepared for it. Things that you think are just you, that nobody else is like this, and then you come to realize, you find a group that, oh, you had these experiences too, and you have these things going on. I'm not just a little bit off, or individually me, but everybody, many people are like this. That's a nice thing about Zoom. We found each other. So your book, when you decided to write a book, Was it the teacher part of you that decided to write a guidebook for mediumship, a practical kind of experience to help others along? Is that what prompted you?
Well, I've always known that I was going to write. And I mean, I'm a reading specialist, but writing is my love. And I also taught writing in the younger grades, not anything major, but in the younger grades, I taught creative writing. But I've always known that I'm supposed to be writing books. I've known that for a long time. I've had complete strangers come up to me and ask me, when am I writing my book? Which is really weird. Like, where's that coming from? I don't even know you. So when that happens, you know that you're probably supposed to be writing a book. So I've always known that. And then I would have to say it was probably the first or second time that I went to the Arthur Findlay College, and I remember I was sitting in the library, and if you've been there, it's just this beautiful, beautiful room. Gordon Higginson's pictures up there, and it's where Mavis does all her classes in that room, and it's just a lovely room. And I was sitting there, and it just hit me that this was supposed to be my first book, was to write about my journey, about learning how to become a medium. And then as I started writing, I think the teacher did kick in.
Mhm.
You know, I'm a, I'm a teacher. Well, I have to have lessons. It's just an extension of the lesson plan, I guess. I don't know. I don't know. But when I was sitting in the library there at the college, I remember thinking to myself as I was listening to the lecture, was, oh my gosh, where would I be right now if I'd have had this when I was younger, and because, living in Texas where I lived, I didn't tell anybody I did this because I learned really quick at a young age not to tell anybody because everybody thought I was nuts. And so I just didn't talk about it. My mother was my only confidant she was the only one that knew. And so I thought to myself, I could write this book and it maybe could reach people who were like me when I lived in Texas. And I had nowhere to turn because I still don't know anybody in Texas who does this. I mean, I'm learning, I'm meeting people online now from Texas, but where I'm from, you don't know a soul. So where did you turn? So you write a book. And another thing that I'm probably a lot of you have done this. I bought every book that was available. I mean, my library was extensive on mediumship or anything to do with this subject. And every book I read, it would only just confirm that I had all the signs. Nothing was telling me what I needed to do to move beyond, yes, you've got the signs. And so I wanted to write a book that to help those who they've read all the books, they're feeling pretty confident now. Yes, look like I'm probably maybe a medium. So I wanted to write a book where they could, go from there. You can make a connection. Now what? Well, you can do this. You can do this now. Now you can do this. So that was my motivation.
So what your book will do for people is it'll give them steps to take, correct? That they can practice.
It does, and I do kind of gradual, they are gradual steps. So it starts off as, intermediate, moving up. It's not for those who are at the very, very beginning. That's my next book. I'm doing it backwards, but that's my next book. But it's for those who can already make a connection, really. But I have a lot of people who are beginners or at that phase of am I or am I not, that are reading it and getting a lot out of it, because you can do the soul work, because that's what we do in the beginning, in the awareness is the soul work. So that aspect is in the book, to do that soul work. But yeah, my next one will be about the awakening and
Mm.
how you do, that
Mhm.
aspect. Yeah.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I mean, this is something I'm going to be looking back at and practicing. It's just you cover so many different topics. It's even hard to, but what would you say? I got one question that I want to, what would you say is the biggest obstacle for mediums when they start out?
Trust.
Trust? Trusting themselves or
Trusting in yourself and trusting in the spirit world, I think, is one of the biggest obstacles. Uh, it's close. I mean, also getting in the power and holding that power and understanding what that power is. I mean, that's another biggie as well. But trust.
how would you, is it just practice that we learn trust? Is it, how would you say that we increase our trust of ourselves?
I think, well, yes, practice, practice is going to help to build that trust. But I also believe that doing that soul work and going within, sitting in the power, and healing all the fears that we have. Because why is it that we don't trust? Usually it's because we have a fear. So if you go in and you do the soul work, you're releasing the fears, you're letting that go, you're healing from that aspect of you, that aspect of your soul. And so as you start to heal that part, the trust starts to get stronger. And then also, the more you practice, the more you build up that confidence, that we all need. But that inner work is so crucial. I think it fixes everything, to be honest. I had a tutor at the college, and every time I would go, but why can't I do this? Or why can't I do that? And why am I hitting this wall? And his response every time was, go within, go.
Are there like certain types of meditations you can do to like start like getting into mediumship, or like what's the best way to actually start besides trusting? Like what kind of work can you do?
I would go in, I would sit in the power. And I think that's, a pretty basic right there. I mean, that's all I did. I sat in the power for a year before I really started formal training. I was doing my circle in my little town, but I sat in the power every single day and never missed a day. And I did that for at least a year. My guide never spoke to me. He would not speak to me. I went round and round with him, but he would not speak to me. Actually, he would say trust. That's what he always said to me. He would say trust. And I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know what he was talking about. But I trusted him for some strange reason. And I just knew that I was doing the right thing by sitting in the power with him. I didn't even know what sitting in the power was. I didn't know what I was doing other than
I don't understand it either. So
yeah, I was just sitting with my guide every day. But there's a difference between sitting in meditation versus sitting in the power. So if you sit in meditation, you go into this passive mode, and your goal there, hang on, your goal there is to quiet the mind and just kind of chill and relax and go into a meditation. So that's passive. But when you sit in the power, it's an active. It's like meditation. You're quieting the mind, but it's an active meditation. So you'll feel sensations. You'll feel a change in your energy, so that you feel alive. But there's a shift. There's a little shift. It's very subtle. And over time, you'll get to recognize what that shift is, because everybody's is unique. But you sit in that power. But the power, when I say the power, what I'm referring to is the power within you, your own soul, your own spirit. So it's your soul power, which is where all your clairs your clairvoyance, clairsentience, claircognizance, all of the clairs or is what makes up that power. And so as you sit in the power, what you're doing is it's like exercise for your power. And your soul power then begins to grow and become strong, and it widens. And so as that soul power widens, it creates this beautiful channel for spirit to come in and work with you. So when you first start off, your power is very close to you. And so spirit comes in, but they can only come so far. They can't, there's not enough power there for them to come in and really blend with us. So when they can't blend with us, what we do is we start reaching. And whoever in the spirit world is out here and around us, which could be multiple people, we just start grabbing. We don't know where it's coming from or who it's coming from. It's like, please, God, just give me something. And you're just grabbing, right? In fact, and so you're just grabbing for whatever can come your way. But as your power starts to grow and expand, they can come in and then they can actually blend their energy with your energy so that their thoughts now become your thoughts and everything starts to flow nicely. You don't have to reach and grab anymore because you've got spirit right here. You can feel them. You can feel the size of their hands. Their thoughts now become your thoughts, and you become this channel where their words, not their voice, but their words just flow right out of you. And so it all just comes together. So it's important for us to build that power. And part of that building of the power, we go through this healing process of healing all the battle wounds that we all carry with us, because we all have lots of life. And we have to heal all of that. And so if we can't heal, and if we ourselves, how can we heal others through our mediumship? Because mediumship is all about healing. It's about bringing healing on both sides of the veil. But we have to be able to heal ourselves before we can heal others. So that's why we sit and do that inner work. And then another reason why we want to do that inner work is because we want to allow all those battle scars that we have to come to the front or to the forefront and to release them so that we feel them and we recognize them, so that when the spirit world comes in, if they've had a similar experience, we've got that to connect to. And we'll recognize that they come in and we're like, oh my gosh, you've had one of those horrible bicycle accidents too. I can feel that. I remember when I let that go, that pain. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
I hope so. Sorry, I
does.
could just keep going.
No, it's
Sorry.
fascinating. No, you don't have, I love it. Great. You are awesome. So it's got to be very, to heal your soul is such it's like, I can't, it's just too large of a topic. You know what I mean? It's like
Right.
a topic inside all this, if you're starting from that point,
But you want to know, you've got to be able to go inside and meet you, not you, the physical you, but you, the spiritual you. You got to meet who you really are. You've got to touch that part of you and touch that. And that's part of that awakening as well. You have to touch the spirit within as well. But, once you've touched the spirit within, and then you have a full understanding of your own soul and the soul that was the soul before you came to earth, that soul.
right.
And you can actually feel what your true essence feels like. And that's when healing really starts to take place, because it's one of the most purest loves that you will ever feel. And it's your love. And when you feel what you were in the spirit world before you came into your body. And you realize, you make this connection of, oh my God, I am part of the divine. I am pure love and light. I'm no different than those in the spirit world that I'm communicating with. I'm no different than my guide. And if I am that, why can't I communicate?
Mhm.
Because it's my spirit, my soul communicating with them, their spirit, their soul. And I came from the spirit world. So if I've come from the spirit world, there's something within me, if I awaken it, that will remember how I can communicate in the way that spirit communicates. So that part of that awakening is where you're awakening that part of your soul that remembers you, your spirit, the spirit you.
And it's also, doesn't it have to be, I mean, thinking for myself, I mean, wouldn't that be scary for the human aspect of us? You know, what I mean? To find that, you know, I mean, it could be awakening, and it could be enlightening and everything, but it also could have an element of fear to it, you know. Okay,
But
so I'm this, but I'm just this now. What's, you know, where's the disconnect? I don't get it. You know.
well, we are spirit in a
Right.
human body. You know, I think we all can probably pretty much agree to that. You know, for me, I didn't search to find that spirit. I didn't know I was supposed to find the spirit within me. I didn't know I was supposed to do any of that. Everything is always accidental with me. But I just remember I was sitting in the power one day, and my guide was always there with me. And all of a sudden, I saw me, but I wasn't me. I was color and light. And it was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen before. And I remember in that meditation just staring at this beautiful light, wondering who it was. And then it dawned on me, it's like, oh my God, that's me. That's me. And my guide is doing this. He's nodding. Yes, this is how I see you. This is how I feel you. And then as soon as he said that, I could feel this unconditional love. That was me. And that was the most healing thing I think I've ever been through, because it was like, oh my God, because we all have our own self-doubts. We all, you know, we're our own worst critic.
Yes.
But I felt what others feel, how the spirit world sees me, how they feel, you know, what they feel when they're with me. And it was just amazing. I can't even explain it. I can't even explain what those colors looked like, because they were colors beyond what we have here.
Mm.
And it was just, it was amazing. I came out of that meditation bawling like a baby.
Mhm.
But huge amount of healing took place on that day. And there was a huge shift in my mediumship as well.
Wow. Wow. Something to strive for, definitely.
Yeah.
Takes time though. It takes time.
It takes time. Definitely.
And devotion. You mentioned your clairs, and in your book, you mentioned you had a teacher that you were clairvoyant was your strongest, you said, but you had it, and your teacher wouldn't let you use that one. How did you go about not using that, but using another one? How do you turn one off to turn one on? I mean,
oh, trust me, I didn't turn anything off.
yeah, but you know,
bring it back.
yeah,
No,
when you said that, it's like, okay, I get information different ways, but how do I stop it this way and start it exclusively another way?
you know, that was a tutor from the college, and he was doing a one-day workshop at the Cambridge church that I'm going to do the service for shortly. And lovely tutor named Chris Drew, and I went with a friend and not knowing what to expect. And when I got there, he said he was banning all clairvoyance. Well, it's the only thing I knew how to do. I had movies rolling in my head, and I didn't even know what clairs were. Nobody had ever told me what clairs were at that point. And so he said we had to use our clairsentience, which I had to get a definition for because I didn't know what that was. And, you know, he explained it all to us, and he just said, no images. All your evidence has to come from your solar plexus, from your clairsentience. And I remember going into a panic, but I just thought, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm just going to try. And I just set the intent, really. Just set the intent. And I put my hands right there on my solar plexus, hoping, praying something would happen. It was not a good day for me. It was hard. I crashed and I burned, and it was really hard. But the thing about it is from that day forward, my clairvoyance, I didn't have clairvoyance. It went away, and I was forced to have to learn how to use the clairsentience. And so I just, I'm stubborn. Thank goodness I'm stubborn. And I just kind of dug in and just said, you got to do this. He said so. And I believed everything they were telling me. So I was like, you just got to have to do this. When I started my mentorship with Mavis, I talked to her about it. And she explained to me, she goes, it's just that they want you to learn how to use your clairsentience. And you're going to get your clairvoyance back. It's not gone forever. It's going to come back. It's just sleeping right now. It's on vacation. And she just explained to me that it would slowly start coming back. And as it came back, my next job was to learn how to take my clairsentience and marry it with my clairvoyance so that the two would work simultaneously together. And it eventually did come back.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I just try to figure out, okay, how do we go about doing that? Don't worry about
You do when you're having your exercises, like my next classes for February, it's going to be all about using the clairsentience. I'm going to ban clairvoyance. And it's going to be, come on guys, we're going to work on this. So when you sit in meditation, you open up your chakras, you can focus on your solar plexus opening really wide. That's one thing you can do, but it's all about intent.
This intent.
Yeah.
There's so many things in your book, but I don't want to give them all away because people need to have it for themselves. And one thing you mentioned was hitting a brick wall. And
oh God, yes. I love
you
that
hit a brick wall. And then you'd say you took a drink of water.
Yeah.
Water.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I learned that trick from a tutor named Jose Goshok. She's a Dutch lady. And she would say, just take a drink of water. And it's a great trick, guys. It's a really good trick. But if you get stuck and there's nothing coming, just, I just hold my finger up and say, bear with me, hang with me for just a moment. Take a little sip of water. And she's like, you take that sip of water, and as you take that sip of water, it's your cue to you're stepping back into your power. Because normally when you get that pause and nothing's coming, it's because you have stepped out of your power. So you've got to get back into it. So take a drink, take a sip, drink it down, and then come back in your power, ready to go. Okay. It's a nice little trick.
Yeah, little trick. We need to learn these.
Mm-hmm.
Ethics. You have a chapter on ethics, and I don't think we kind of talk, I mean, we talk about we're in light and love and that's the way we work. But you talk about the ethics of when you have a sitter and they might have issues or, anything like that. And maybe you can explain more to us about that.
Yeah, and I think ethics covers a wide range, part of that ethics, and I don't think I touched on this in the book, is, not talking about specific things in readings and that sort of thing. Vague, yes, but nothing specific. But in the book, I talk about, making sure that we are aware of the evidence that's coming in and knowing how to package that in a way. If you've got, let's say you have a parent in front of you that's grieving, they've just lost a young child and they're grieving, you have to be careful with what you bring, especially if it was traumatic in how that child passed away. We have to be, very aware of how is that going to, affect the parent or whoever is on the other side of that. And then you have suicides, which is another whole big thing. You definitely don't want to just blurt out, they killed themselves. You don't want to say that, and, for me, it's like, and I, especially with suicides, is I allow that evidence to come in. I recognize it and I don't say anything. I continue with my reading. I allow it to come back again. I continue. Third time around, I know I need to bring it in. But when I bring it in, I choose those words, wisely. I know that your son, whoever, I know that they would have had responsibility in their passing. So you just choose those words a little bit more, softer there. So I think those are the things that we don't often think about, is how do we package the words and the wording so that you're not creating a trigger for the recipient. If you've got an abuser in the spirit world who comes in and the person that they abused is sitting across from you, you have to be careful with what you do. And you are the medium, so you're always in control. And I've had situations where I've had to, because it was more than the sitter could handle. I just had to say, you have to step back. Thank you for coming in. She knows that you're here, but now you have to step back because this is too hard.
Mhm.
You have to take that responsibility there. But I think we need to really, have that empathy there.
Yeah.
When we're
Yeah.
working.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to really, it has to be very mindful on your part.
Very mindful.
You just
And,
can't.
and just, it's not that you're changing the evidence, you're just softening it so that it's not a hard blow there. But, so many things for ethics that we need to consider.
Mhm.
Lots of things.
There's a lot to consider, I mean, even if you have someone in front of you that, like you did with the gentleman, they had some issues.
Oh, yes.
Those are personal issues.
We're almost the same. Yes. Yes, I had to, I knew he was in my circle, this gentleman that you're referring to, and wanted a reading, and I was happy to give him a reading, and he came to my house, and reading went wonderful. And then at the end, I asked him if there was anything else, and he says, yes, I was just wondering if you could maybe read something with this, and he handed me, I can't remember if it was an envelope or not, but he handed me a photo. And when I psychometrize, I don't like to look at the photo, but it was in my hand and I'm holding it like this. And I just start psychometrizing that photo. And the gentleman, the feeling that I was getting was depression and darkness and slipping further, and a lot of serious, mental things. And then about, a little way on, halfway into that reading, I realized that that photo was a photo of the person I was reading. And we have to, the moment that I realized it was him, I looked up at him and I said, "I'm talking about you." And he just smiled and he goes, "Yes, that's me."
Mm.
And at that point, I had to stop the reading
Mhm.
because, and I had to just have this conversation because I wasn't aware of this with him at all. And I just said to him, I said, there are professional places where you can go. There are professionals that you can see that you can get you some help. And, he nodded. He was well aware of that. And he had tried throughout his life to get help. And I said, I'm going to leave you with that. Reach out to your social support team and get the help that you need. But I had to stop it right there because if you have somebody who is having maybe a mental breakdown, or maybe you realize there's a mental illness there, or perhaps they're under the influence of drugs or alcohol or something like that, you don't want to continue reading. You want to stop right there. And one of the things that I was taught was to always have resources available, especially if you're reading in person. Have resources available that you can hand them as they're leaving. If it's a pamphlet that has numbers, AA, all the different, support systems that they can go to, but hand that to them as they're leaving. And just let them know that now's not the right time to have the reading, and wish them well. And perhaps you can do it at another time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Difficult situations. I don't think we think about them all the time, what might happen and, who might we get. And, and to be prepared for these things in advance is, very good information.
Right.
We could go on forever, I think, but I don't want to give up any more of this book. It is amazing. I recommend it to anybody that's interested in their mediumship and all the practices that the teacher has got there for you. She's got a lot of them, and it's just a great reference for everybody. So you have, besides your book, you mentioned, and I know you have classes online and things of that nature. So do you want to say anything about those?
Yeah, I do. I normally have like a 4-week class that I offer each month. I change it up. I do beginning mediumship. I do intermediate and advanced together. This month I did I did a beginning class, an intermediate class, and an advanced class. But normally it's a beginning class under intermediate to advanced. And I have different topics, different things that we work on. The beginning class this month is color, using color ribbons, learning about doing psychic readings with color. I love working with the beginning meeting, especially in mediumship, and helping them make that first contact. I link in with them, and I'm right there with them. I know who's there. I can hear what's going on, so I can help them with that. But yes, do that. And then on Tuesdays at 1 o'clock Eastern time, I have a Zoom meet. It's free and anybody can come. And I usually have a topic that I'll talk about, and then I open it up to Q&A. And sometimes we might do a little exercise as well. And that's on Tuesdays.
And I know Judy posted your information on our chat, right, Judy? So it's all there for everybody. So I think what we're going to do now is open it up for questions. So I'd say, Kay, you can stop recording and we can go to questions if anybody has.